rats. I'm here giving a simul, and unfortunately I only got 3 people to play. 4 people decided they want to play someone else or didn't have time. Let's kind of go through these games just to update what's happening. I'm playing the normal system that I play, and he elects to go for the kingside attack, and now he's getting ready to play h5, and not something I fear. Question is, how do I wish to proceed? One thing I can do is play b5, and then on knight e7 I can take on d4. That opens up the diagonal. Then I play c4 and even c5, and my pawns are off and running. I'm not afraid of his h4. I'll take back with my f pawn on g3. So first step here. Now let's kind of go through the moves here. Let's see. Oh, let's go all the way to the beginning. Okay. So we're just following the basic formation of the moves. Sometimes I think it's better to play c3 before knight bd2. And now the system says to play e4. He may push by d4, but not too worried about that. Actually, I'd be threatening to win a pawn with bishop takes f6. So I'll just follow the system here and play e4. The other game, I've kind of changed the system a little bit. I've done this experiment. I'll show you when we get there. I played this on one other line. I'm playing knight c3. Now, it tries to entice black to play d4, and that's what they do. If they play knight f6, I can play e4, and I'm right into King's Indian defense reversed with a tempo in hand. But you see here, this activates my bishop on the long diagonal. This is a piece that usually doesn't do me much good. And I've got the g2 bishop has scope. So now I go ahead and play knight bd2. And in this case, I preserve the dark squared bishop. I'm not going to go trade it off. I'm going to, wait, we're not quite there yet. Knight b1, bishop e6. That's why. Okay, it's his move. Okay, so he's playing bishop e6. Maybe he's planning to rip my knight off when it gets to c4. But I have remedies for that too. I'll be playing a pawn to b3 at some point. I may even interject with c4 on my own. But I need to get knight bd2 played first. And I'll go ahead and do that. Now he did play d4. Okay, so this is not something that I'm necessarily afraid of. I've run into it a few times already. The first objective here is, let's see, in some respects I don't like playing a4 because of the weakness it creates on b3. I can take on d4 because of the pin on the knight on c6. So pawn takes. If he takes with the knight, I can play knight takes. Yeah, this is a position where I can go ahead and take on d4, and he can Zwischenzug with knight b4, I suppose. But my queen will just go to. I think a4 should suffice. Let's see. Do I want to play this move? Pawn takes. Knight b4. See, I'm looking at queen b3. He has bishop e6. Oh, but then I place d5. He can't do a Zwischenzug. So he's going to end up taking with the c pawn, and I get some pressure with a pin. And I can always, if he takes with the c pawn, play rook c1 and answer knight b4 with queen b1. So here I can do this. Okay, so now do I want to play c4 here? black hasn't decided if he's going to couch it. Is he going to try queen d7 and bishop h3? Try to neutralize my bishop? Do I want... Since I have such a great bishop, I don't mind if he takes my knight. I'm going to put the knight on c4 right now, get some development, and then play... there's no... ideally, what I'm getting ahead of myself. In some positions, I played this before. I put the pawn on b3, then the knight on c4. But that takes time to stop and put the pawn there. I don't care if he doubles my pawn. Well, I just played it. Too late. Okay, I was going to say one more thing, but I've played it. I've let go. Okay, so now I go through here and I take this pawn, attacking his bishop. He takes. I push c4. And then I'm able to push c5. I might trap a piece here. We can take with the knight. Maybe it's would have been more precise to have taken on, or taken here first. We can take with the knight. I can still play c5. I like my game here. Okay, so now he did take with the pawn. Now I swing my rook to c1, and for what it's worth, I have a pin. He might play bishop e6, in which case I can drop my queen back to b8 or to b1. Okay, so now c4 here. It's a shame I had four more challenges sent out that weren't accepted. They were playing in tournaments or other people or whatever. So he took with the bishop. I played c4. Now he's going to probably have to take my knight off, because if he retreats the bishop, I get c5, and his bishop on d6 is trapped. So I may take... now how do I want to take back? With the bishop, that gives me a possible tempo of knight e4. Where else can the knight go? Yeah, I want e4 for my knight. I'm going to take with the bishop, and I don't mind if he plays... Well, wait, let's not jump to conclusions here. Let's see. So if I take with the bishop, he's going to play h4. Now I can't play knight e4 right away, but I can play c5. He's going to have to deal with that. He'll play bishop c5 maybe. I play bishop g2. He plays h4. I play knight e4, and I'm attacking his queen. And don't think he has enough to mate me and give up that bishop. My king can run. So, but logic says to go ahead and take with the knight here, and that's what I'll do. Leave that bishop on g2 where it is. It'll come into play soon enough. Okay, knight takes. I did play e4, but this is not a move I necessarily fear. I ran into this before in another game. Now let's see, knight d2. Where they sacked a pawn on e3. Okay, so knight fd2. Yeah, there we go, knight fd2. So he played g4, and I think that's a mistake because he's shutting down the h-file. So now I play knight d2 and plan knight e4. So knight d2, h4, knight f6. I think he can put the queen on h6, but he can cap. Let's see, knight e2, queen h6, knight e4, knight e2, h4, knight d2, queen h6, knight e4, h4, c5. Actually, I'm threatening c5 right away too. So queen 8. Knight d2. I'm threatening c5. So queen h6, c5, h4, pawn takes. I'm threatening mate. Yeah, this will work. Okay. All right. So, excuse me. I'm pretty much at a point where I can't take any more games. Okay, what's he doing here? What if I just play c5? I could say c5. Okay, so c5. Okay, so he didn't push e3. Now, which way do I want to take back? If I take with the c pawn, I get a half open c file. He gets a half open e file. Do I want to chop his knight off on c6? And that weakens my light squares too much. D takes. He's going to play b5. Not too worried about that. I'm going to keep it simple. Open up the e file. Open up a diagonal for my queen. What if he plays bishop g4? Yeah, I can. Okay, let's consider that. They could be playing bishop g4 and other lines too. Bishop g4. Either have to step back into a pin, or, but that's not too bad. And the e file's opening up. I can get some play on that e file, I think. Okay, so bishop e6. So now he's not really threatening the pawn on c4. So I can play knight c4, or not the pawn on c4, the pawn on a2. I can play knight c4 here. The idea behind that is that, well, let's see, then he plays knight. Well, if knight b4, I don't mind that so much. Knight b4. Put the queen on b1. I think I can play knight c4 here. Knight c4, knight b4, queen b1. For any discoveries, yeah, knight c4 is the move. Okay, knight c4. Now he castled. That's probably a safe and sound choice. So f2 is fine, so I can take the e file with rook e1. I can play knight e4, and if he takes on c4, I take with the pawn. Got to open up a diagonal for my dark squared bishop. I've got to figure out where I want that. I could play a4 here and try to maintain a knight on c4, but I think that's a waste. Knight e4. If bishop g4, when knight takes knight check, and he loses a piece. Okay, so knight e4 is a decent move. Okay, knight e4. Now he's going for the mate. I'm threatening mate right now. When I take here, and so I take his bishop because he cleared a spot for that. Okay, so 3 games going, and okay, so now I can play knight e4. I can be a rook up here real quick. knight e4. He could play knight d4 at any point. But I've got a good square for my knight. He did play knight e4, so let's go bother his a pawn. Queen a4. Now he has knight e2 check. Let's wait. Set this queen back. He has knight e2 check. King h1, h3 traps my bishop, but he has to wait to do that. And I'll clear a spot for that bishop. Yeah, queen a4 works here. Okay, queen a4. Okay, he took, and I take. I don't mind. Bishop takes c4. Gives me nice control of the light squares. He did check. Okay. Watch your queen. Well, what if I take your rook here? Then I'm still on your queen. Queen takes rook. Pawn takes, knight takes queen. You're going to get a pawn back on the h-file, but you don't have enough material to mate me. Queen takes. Okay. You played there, of all things. Okay. Okay, one rule of thumb is don't make exchanges that develop your opponent's pieces. Let him make exchanges that develop yours. So I can play queen f3 threatening his bishop, and then he'll take, and my queen will be on e4. Do I want my queen on e4 this early? I can play rook e1, and if he takes my bishop, I take back with the rook. And I've got pieces doubled on the open file. I like trading the light squared bishops to some degree because he's got a couple pawns on dark squares. So it's just a question of what I want to get developed next, my queen or my bishop. Let's look at it this way. Queen f3, he takes my bishop, I take with the queen. He plays rook e8. He's trying to unmask some kind of a threat on my queen. I play rook e1. Where does his bishop go? Maybe g5, discovering attack on the queen. Now, I'm going to put the rook on e1 and let the rook be the leader, and go from there. So rook e1. What if he plays f5? That weakens him a little bit. I think I'll be okay if he plays f5. Okay, so he took my queen. Now I need to take his queen. As long as I don't get checkmated over here, I'm okay. He can take on g3, and then when I take on g3 with my f-pawn, he can play knight takes check, king g1, and he runs out of checks. Okay. So I'm ahead a rook and a bishop here. I like the idea of you trying to attack me, but you went a little too quick. So he took, as expected. Now he's threatening mate, so I need to take. Now I'll take on g3 with check, and I put my king on g1. He could take my rook, but he's running out of material. He's going to be down 2 pieces. Okay, so he played knight d7. So do I want to keep his knight out of b4? Only if I want to push b4, b5 at some point. It makes sense to just play a preventative move like a3. And at b5, I can put the knight back on. I have to be careful. Well, let's see. a3, b5, knight d2. I'm attacking the knight on c6. I'm just wondering if I don't I just want to make sure I don't accidentally see this bishop get shut in where it can't get out. A3, F6, bishop D2, then B5. Now where does my knight go? Oh, it goes to A5 because I'm protecting it. Okay, so A3 is fine. Okay, now he took. Now I take with the rook. Okay, now he's played rook H2. Well, doesn't that give me a rook? What do you get for it? You get a rook with check. Okay, unfortunately this game's gone south on him pretty quick. He played too quick. Well, here, you can see the answer here, 94 minutes. He did not take his time. Thanks, but you moved too quickly. Anyway, let's try to do a quick run through with this. As long as nobody else moves, I can do it. I wasn't watching the times tick down, but he ended with more time than he started. I admire him for trying to attack my king, but he has to be subjected to 1-2. That's the only way to play these. So, see, he goes and moves. Let's come back. So here he's trying to attack my king, but I start mine. I attack his knight. I take a pawn. I get my pawns rolling. He has to take that or he drops the bishop. Now he didn't save his bishop. He needs to play something like knight G6, but he attacks my knight. Now he still needs to play something like knight G6 or bishop C5. But he goes for the attack and he gets a piece trapped. Now I'm threatening mate. Now I attack his queen. He attacks my queen. And I go attack A7. He checks. Drives my... It looks like he's getting somewhere, but he's given up a piece to do this. And his queen is loose. Maybe instead of rook D4, what if he can sack his queen? Pawn takes. He's threatening a mate. If pawn takes, well, you can't, because I don't have time to take his queen because the rook takes mate. So pawn takes, F takes. Now he doesn't have time for knight G3 check because my knight's still on there, so I can't really give up his queen. Okay, so there goes his queen. He gets a couple checks, and that's it. The game's over. So thanks for the game. Down to 2. I wish there was like 10, but I don't know if I'm going to get rid of this list. The people they sign up to play me, but they're not showing up. Okay, so he played A5 here. And let's say, is it my move here? No, it's his move. Okay. So what do I wish to do here? Let's see. Is B5 a problem? I don't think B5 is really a problem because my knight goes back to D2 and I've got the pin on the knight. Now F6, bishop D2. If he plays B5, I have knight F takes E5. Or not knight F takes, knight C takes E5, and he takes with D7. And I take again on E5, and I'm going to win his knight on C6 because of the pin. Okay, so do I care if he plays A4 here? Well, probably not. What if I play bishop D2 here? The purpose of bishop D2 is I'm threatening... Am I threatening knight takes A5? Can't take with the knight. I can take with the rook. Then bishop takes A5, queen takes A5. I've given up 2 pieces for the rook. Is that any good? Let's see. Bishop d2, but it's his move. I'd like to try to find a way to get bishop e7 in at some point, but I can't quite see how to do it. Looking at the time, he's taking his time. Let me talk about time for a minute. We've played 14 moves. He's taken 25 minutes plus. He's taken 32 minutes, which is good. You know, he gets 7 minutes back on the increment. Here he's going a little quick, but he's slowing down now. He hasn't moved in a few moves. Okay, so let's I could play bishop d2 with the idea of playing b4 myself. Bishop d2 if he plays b5. Yeah, I like that idea. Bishop d2. I'd like to play f6 in and just cut down the diagonal of that bishop, but I don't know. That there's some lines where I'm going to grab on e5. So let's see. Bishop d2. The idea being I want to play b4. Let's try that. And if he plays b4, b5, I can play knight takes a5. And on rook takes a5, I can play queen takes c6. So bishop d2 is a good move here. And now we let them move. Okay, so got them both thinking. Both their clocks are ticking. That will change. So I get a chance to eat as much as I wanted to this morning. So I've got one of my patented chocolate chip brownie oat bars from Trader Joe's sitting around. Okay, he played bishop g5. That's good, trying to get his dark squared bishop off the board. I can play queen h5, developing my queen. Attacking his bishop, inviting him to trade it. I'm asking an attack on c5. I like that idea. Let's see, queen h5. There you have it, queen h5. Okay. Now where's my beverage? Oh, here it is. Okay, so for what it's worth, I've got my queen and rook developed, and he doesn't. I'm ready to double on the file. I've got a tempo on b6. If he plays b5, I can take on c5. He takes my knight, I take his knight. Do I care if his knight goes to b4? I can always prevent it with a3. Usually white doesn't get this much out of the opening. It's not much that I've got. I've just got a slight development advantage. You know, when I chose to take on d3 with my e-pawn, I knew I kept the pawn structure balanced. But I knew that it gave me active lines for my queen and my rook, and now you can see that both have been developed as a result. So it's not much. You're getting an inch here. You're getting an inch there. You try to get another inch somewhere else, and pretty soon, um, the game turns in your favor. Uh, that's what I'm trying to do here. Trying to prove how to use this system uh, to your advantage. There's just like any opening, there's always going to be a wide divergence of possible lines, so it's impossible to learn everything about this opening, even just looking at 10 or 20 of my games, because I've pretty much run into every strategy. I guess I'm just going to have to categorize this out, figure out exactly how to present this in a different way, because I've learned different strategies and similar strategies. I've learned things that work and don't work. Uh, it's just like any opening I'm developing. It's a never-ending process. Okay, so somebody just moved. Okay, he created a weakness on his E file. Okay, so E6 is weak. Is he trying to play F4? What if I play Rook H4 and threaten mate? Well, it's not threatening a mate, but it's threatening a pawn. That could be a nuisance. Okay, so Rook H4, H6. And I can play Queen G6 when I'm threatening to take a pawn. With Rook takes H6. So he plays King H8, and I've gained a bit. Rook H4 threatens Queen takes H7 check, followed by Queen takes F5 check. H6, Queen G6. King H8. Now I go wave a rook, put my rook on C1 on E1. What if he goes and counterattacks my pawns with knight B4? Do I care about the pawns? At least what instinct says he doesn't have time to go grab them, but if he can defend it, he can. So you do have to consider those things. Retreating to E2 is the first move I considered, but I don't think it's the right move. I think I need to try to keep pressing here. Rook H4. The only way you can guard H6 is to move it. Then I play Queen G6, and now the threat is Rook takes H6, so he plays King H8. And I have at least a perpetual check in that position with Rook takes H6 check. Might even have some mating possibilities if I can get the knight into the game and the other rook into the game. Well, I'm going to go with Rook H4 and let him defend this position. Okay, we'll see what happens. Okay, so here my idea is just to play B4. He's going to get the A file, but I've got something too. Maybe he needs to play Rook FC8 at some point, or get his queen off that that open file. Okay, H6. Now we go through and play Queen H6. Now we're threatening to play Rook takes H6. Okay, queen there. I suppose he could play Rook F6. See, I'm playing too quick myself. But I just put the queen back on H5 and give him a chance to play Rook H8. I mean King H8. So he should play Rook F6 here rather than King H8. But it would have been funny if I trapped my queen with queen g6. I can come back to h5. See, play too. I talk about people playing too quick. Well, I play too quick. Um, Even if he plays king h8, I don't see a clear advantage for me. I just see a development advantage that I'm trying to work things out with. Well, rook f6 is his move, queen h5, and I've basically handed him a free move. Oh, he played there. Okay, didn't quite expect that move. Do I want to trade queens and tie my rook up, double his pawns? Do I want to play queen e6 check? Oh, he's on my rook on f1, or c1. So queen e6 check and f4 attacks his queen. Queen I like queen e6 check. Let's examine the other line. Queen takes g5, hg5. Where does my rook go? It goes to h5, and he plays g4. Now how's my rook get out? Now I'm just going to check and play f4. He has pawn weaknesses, but here I come out okay. Okay, queen check. And then I'm playing f4. And he backs his queen up somewhere. Probably f6. Of course, I'm getting my rook out of play as it is, but I'll find a way to get him out of there. I could also play rook f4, or just not even play f4 at all. Just play the rook directly to e1. He can't go queen to e2 because my knight's covering it. If he plays b5, I may just grab his knight on c6. Well, I wish I had 6 or 7 more games, but I don't. I'm trying to get all these games done this summer when I have time. Okay, king h2 or h7. Now, f4 does hem my rook in a little bit. Rook e1. I got to play f4 because rook e1, he might give up the 2 rooks for the queen and get queen c1 check in. So I'll get this rook back in the game. f4, queen f6. There we go. I'll get that rook back in the game. Now I'm striking at e5, although I did weaken e3. Take his knight a while to get over there. Now you'll probably play queen f6, but I may play rook e1 in that case. This game's getting a little sloppy. Just a wee bit sloppy. Let's see. He's still thinking here. Okay, I've got a 23-minute time advantage. Here I have a 6-minute time disadvantage, but I have plenty of time. Plenty of time. I'm going to cancel these chat requests if they're still there. Oh, Durable Cream tried to chat with me. Well, gotta what? I'm sorry I didn't see the chat requests. So I'll just try and accept it and see what happens. Well, it's too late. It's too late to play now. The match is going. I was starting it earlier. Let's see. Cancel that request. Cancel this chat request. Cancel this request. Cancel that request. The match started over an hour ago. We got to get it over. Because I have other things to do afterward. That's just the way it is. So, not saying much, not thinking much. Yeah, I've found that if I keep the pawn on c3, a lot of times I just don't get any activity for a lot of my pieces. This one, suddenly, I'm keeping the dark squared bishop instead of trading it off, and my knight on c4 is nicely posted. And like I say, you can't play b5 because there's a tactic, knight takes a5, relying on the pin. And if you play something like b6, I'm just going to play b4 and go about doing what I want it set out to do, which is, play on this side of the board. The alternative is to try for an f4 idea. I tried that in one game in a similar position, and I ended up opening up the position for his bishops or something and just got clobbered. So, with all that in mind, I'm waiting for both of them to move. Okay. So you might play queen g6 or queen f6. Queen g6, I can play rook e1, and rook e8, I can play queen takes, check. King takes, king f2, he can trade rooks and he gets a check. And my rook's kind of stuck, but I'll figure out a way to get him out of there. I don't think I have an advantage here after all. Even game. What can I say? Well, at least I'm getting, what, 3 people off the list that were on the list. I'm getting 3 people off. Their names will come off. And I'd like to play all of you. And it may have to come down to that I'm going to give simuls, and you're there or you're not. And I'll try to do something for those that signed up that haven't been here, but your time, you won't necessarily get a 90-30 game. And the whole purpose of this is give you the 90-30 game. It's not me getting the 90-30 game. I'm not playing 90-30. With 3 games, I'm essentially playing 30-10. Okay, maybe I get a little better than that because right now both my opponents are on the move. But that's what I get. If you divide 3 games by 90-30, I get 30-10. So that puts me at a handicap because I don't play my best at a fast time control like that. So I don't always find my best move, which means things get a little tougher on me later. Makes a position harder to win. Clearly, I made a mistake here when I put my queen on g6 and allowed him to the opportunity to play rook f6, which he didn't. Somebody moved. I'm just microwaving a little snack here. Okay. So, pardon me when I eat in about 4 minutes. Okay, he did play his rook there. Now, I can take his queen, he takes my queen. I'm going to play queen takes d8 here. What's he do? Or queen takes e8. Queen takes e8. If he plays rook takes e8, I play pawn takes. If he takes my rook on h4, I take his rook on f8. Did he lose material here? Oh my goodness. Oh, that's a shame. Okay, what am I missing? Queen takes e8. I'm attacking his... He plays queen takes h4, I play queen takes f8. His queen is loose, he doesn't have a useful place to put the queen, and he's going to be down a rook. But sometimes I miss obvious moves. One-movers are one of my weaknesses. As long as I'm careful and make sure I'm not missing a one-mover, this will work. Queen takes e8, what's he do? It's an active move which takes a rook. If he doesn't do a recapture, like he needs to do a threat capture check, he takes my queen, I take his queen. And he can't take my pawn on g5 because it's pinned and he's down a rook. Well, queen takes e8 I think does it. Queen takes e8. Okay, now what did he do here? f6. Okay, so now my idea is to play b4. That overprotects e5, makes it a little safe and secure to some tactics, but at the same time, it shuts his bishop in a little bit. Okay, so my microwave buzzer just went off, meaning it's done. I can play b4. How can he attack that pawn on b4? Let's see. I just heard a capture. I'm going to go check this. Okay, he took my rook. Now I take his rook, right? And back to this game. Okay, b4 I'm pretty sure is my move. Now he's going to get the open A file. Where can he put his rook that's useful? Okay, b4, A takes. A takes. Rook a3. Do I have time for b5? No, wait, I can't put his rook on a3. My knight's guarding that square. See, I can't see one movers. Well, I think b4 is my move. Let's see. Did I hear another move over here? I think I did. Okay, so I've won a rook here. Now it's a matter of finding the quickest path to victory. Okay, I can play knight e6. or d6. That threatens queen takes f5 check. He can't play knight e7. It hangs the knight. If he plays g6, his king gets in a wee bit of danger, I think. Queen check, king h8, followed by rook e8. So knight d6. Suppose he jettisons his queen somewhere. Queen f3. Now I play queen takes f5 check. His king goes back to f8. And I play queen e4 and everything's covered. Okay. I think this one's almost over. Okay, knight e3. Now it's my move here. b4, pawn takes. I was having the rook go to a3. Where else can he go? What's safe? Well, he can put the rook on a7. But then I might get b5 and even b6 in. But I'm pretty sure this is the move to play, b4. The only other reasonable type move to think about is like rook fd8, or fd1, but I'm not sure if I want the rook on d1, and I'm not sure if this rook will end up going back over to the queen side. So I'll play b4, and we'll see what happens. Okay. Now he did put his queen, activating his queen. Okay, so now I check, and I'm going to play queen e4, and see, queen e4 takes away his threats. Okay, queen e4. Now if he plays queen d2, I can play rook e1. He can have my pawns, and I'll go for mate. I think I have mating combinations here. Okay, so now rook e1. Now my rook's active. You can have my pawns. I don't need them. Knight b5. Okay, now knight f5 looks inviting. The idea is to try to mate you on, well, let's just not rush things. Here's a move over here. Okay, he took, and I need to take back, right? Okay. He's planning to take on c2 and attack my rook. So, I have queen e6 check, king h7, queen f5 check, king h8, rook e8 mate, queen e6 check, king h8, knight f7 check, king h7. Yeah, let's just give this check. I think this works. Always check. It might be mate. That's an old expression. Okay. So now he's got a little bit of protection on the C file. I think what I need to do next is play b5. That gives up the c5 square. Now I have the luxury of plenty of time here, so I want to try to play my best game so that you get the experience that me playing my best game gives you. I mean, I can play a bad game easily enough, give you an advantage, and I'll try to hang on for dear life, and you gain something there by beating me when I play a bad game. But at the same time, if I have an advantage and I can press it, I keep you on the defensive trying to hold it, and that's good practice for you too. So let's see. B5 attacks your knight. Your knight has to move. But But then you're hitting c4. So like a move like queen b3 here is no good because you play knight b6. And you're pinning my knight. Okay, so let's see. My knight on f3 and my bishop on g2 aren't doing me much good. His bishop on g7 isn't doing him much good. My rook on f1 isn't helping. Here I'm playing on the queen side, but he's got his pieces over there and I don't. So maybe that's a thing that makes you want to stop and say, well, maybe I should attack on the king side since that's where I'm at. I'm solid on the queen side. I'm playing knight a5. Knight a5 pins his knight. Threatens b5. Knight a5, he plays queen b6. And I'm no longer threatening b5. If I play b5 right away, where does he go with his knight? He can't go to b4, he can't go to a5, he can go to a7. Now do I get anywhere with b6? Probably not. Knight takes b6. So b5 probably premature. I want to make sure it's not my move in this other game over here, because I don't know if it is or isn't. It's lit yellow. That doesn't tell us much. Okay, so now queen check here, and I think it's mate coming up really quick. Check. Okay. Going to be down to one game. Okay. I think this is mate, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, it is. Okay. So I got lucky there. My queen g6 was a blunder. Played too quick. Go down to one game. Okay. So what is he threatening, if anything? What would, if I had black here with the majority of pieces on the queen side, what would I try to do? I'd try to work on that knight on c4, right? And he's got a pin on it too. D6 looks like a fun square. My knight's on it, but b5, knight a7, bishop b4. But I'm not really threatening to go to d6 because he can take on b5 and protect d6. Knight a5, queen b6. Do I have time for knight takes b7? Queen takes b7. No, I don't have time for that. What to do when you have a 22 time advantage? Time advantage on the clock. Well, you do a little math first. Basically, this works out to approximately a 3-2 advantage in White's favor. So for every 2 minutes he has, I have 3 minutes. So at some point I can, and I've had advantages like this, and then I've used them, and I've ended up with even less time than my opponent had. And this will pay off for you. See, in order to win a game, you need two weaknesses, and he doesn't have it. He doesn't have two weaknesses. Objectively, I have one. I have a pawn on d3. Can't be guarded by a pawn. Another idea is to get my rook on f1 in play is to play rook a1. Now I'm threatening maybe a b5 move. Let's see, rook a1. I'm kind of liking that move, rook a1. I need to get off the c file. Well, rook a1, what if he plays knight e7? Okay, now he's pinning my knight on c4. See, that's his target. If I could back it up with knight d2, that'd be great, but I can't. And I didn't mention one idea to clear d2 is to bring the bishop back to e1, but that traps my rook in, unless I want the rook on the king side. So there's a lot of choices here. I mean, I think black's got equality here, but how, if I'm going to play this for a win, what do I do? Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. If I take a look at a position long enough, and as long as I'm tactically safe, I'll find a strategic plan. So, queen b2 is an interesting move. It takes my queen off the c file, and so I run into less pressure with a b5 move. And also, I could maybe play knight, follow up with knight a3 and knight b5. I'm kind of liking that maneuver. Knight a3, knight b5. He gets a2. Well, he doesn't directly have it. Well, his queen's under attack. So let's see, knight a3 threatens knight b5. What's he going to play? He has to come up with a move. Let's try rook a7. No, that's just lost knight b5. Let's try. I can't try to double his rooks. Well, rook a4 is now playable. Let's see, queen b2, rook a4. Now, I play rook a1. I'm on his rook, and he can't double. Oh yeah, he can. Okay, queen b2, rook a4, rook a1, rook over to a8. Rook takes a4, rook takes a4, and slide a rook back over to c1 again, and have play on that knight on c6. Queen b3 is a move I'd like to play to keep his rook out of a4, but I think he can play b5 then, a move he can't necessarily play now. So, queen b2 does attempt to shift things over to the queen side a little better. It gives me options to play knight a3 and knight b5, and then follow up with a rook a1 to stop his play on the queen side. So, if black can equalize, there's when black's equal, there's nothing you can do. If black finds the right moves, he'll find the right moves, okay? The game of chess starts out even on move 1. If your opponent finds the right moves from the get-go, you don't win. and if he's close enough in rating to you, you'll have a highly competitive game. You may not find your best opportunities to try for advantage, and same for him. But if he doesn't make any gross mistakes, you're not going to win. Queen b2, I think his move is rook a4. But then again, that gives me stuff like b5 and potential knight discoveries. So, okay, queen b2, rook a4, b5 attacks his knight, and then maybe I can play knight takes b5, knight takes e5 on him. Yeah, queen b2. Okay. I think that's the best move to try for an advantage, and let him try to determine how to equalize it. So now, slightly less than a 3-2 advantage. So I've gotten 9 minutes back on the increment. So he hasn't. He's got, well, just call it 9 minutes. He spent 56 minutes on 18 moves. So he's going right about 3 minutes a move, just a little bit more than normal. 90-30 doesn't quite give you 3 minutes a move, but it comes close. Okay, so now I have ideas of putting a rook on a1. I have ideas of putting a knight on a3 going to b5. I unprotected d3. That's not something he can get at easily. And if I can get both rooks over the queen side, my bishop can drop back to f1 if need be, if it needs to hold on to that square. My gut says black's okay here, but he has to come up with a solid move. If I'm playing a 2000 player with this position with white, maybe I get an advantage soon. If I'm playing a 2400 player with white here, he's going to maintain equality, and I have to keep working. It's like, when you're exercising, lifting weights, you've got counter pressure as you're lifting the weights. You can feel the tension. It's the tension. You feel the tension in a chess game too, as they punch and counter punch. So I'm having a little soup here. I can. Hopefully my gulps aren't too noisy. My sips and gulps. Probably the smart thing for him to do is just maintain the status quo, get his queen off the open file. Queen b8, queen d8. But queen d8 might allow me to play knight d6, and then to attack a rook, then bring the knight to b5. It might become a nuisance. As this is something that happens to me a lot in my games. I sit here and I know I've got a good game. I really don't know what my opponent's going to do. And he goes into a long think and he ends up playing something I didn't even anticipate. And, that seems dangerous, but I tell you, this happens a lot. But what he can do really isn't all that helpful, may not be all that helpful for him. It might be the best move, it might not. But when you have a good foundation of positional chess, your game will stay solid. What's going to beat you is tactics. So the only weakness the only weakness of the position is mine. It's pawn on d3. You could say our B pawns are both weak, but because they're isolated. But you see, there's tactical weaknesses here. The d6 square is weak, but it's only a weak square. It's not one that I can readily access. The threat of a b5 push is weak. I've taken squares away from him. He can't get to a5. He parts with the bishop here if he takes on c4 and develops my rook. So if his knight on c6 moves, he faces a potential discovery with knight takes e5. So also, if he was planning bishop f8, putting more pressure on my b4 square, I protected it in advance. And I wasn't entirely sure rook a4 was a saving grace for him, because I can play b5. Oh, he played b5 himself. Okay. Well, now I can take advantage of a pin. See, this is not a move I expected, but I talked about it earlier. I can take advantage of a pin. With knight a5. Let's see. I also play the knight to a3, because that was one of my ideas. Go attack b5. But on a3, my knight doesn't have a whole lot of mobility, at least in this situation. Where does it go next? Well, if it goes to b1, it's blocked. Its paths are blocked. If it goes to c2, where's it going next? It isn't. So knight a5 seems to be the move, and now I have a tactical threat on his knight on c6. So he'll need to move his queen to take some pressure off, or retreat knight db8, right? That's what it looks like to me. Now, I'd mentioned earlier both our b pawns are weak, so maybe the black b pawn's a little weaker now than it once was. So looking at time, 58 to 38, knight a5 is my move. I have the possibility of bringing the knight back to b3 and trying for getting the knight into c5, and if he wants to capture it with his bishop, I get the bishop pair. There's nothing making me trade knights. So sometimes you know your move, and you just need to play it to get your opponent, keep your opponent from thinking on your time. Because knight a3, unless there's a tactical solution, knight a3 is just not good here. It was good if I'm threatening to go to that square, because they can't play knight, you can't play b5. But knight a5 here. Now, does he sacrifice the exchange? Rook takes a5. I don't think that works. He's not even rook takes, pawn takes. He can take with the no, he can't take with the knight. He's pinned. So he'll probably move his queen to b6 here. That's what I'm guessing, just to break the pin once and for all. And I can trade on c6 and develop my rook onto c1 easily enough. And now my pawn on b4 does block my bishop in. My bishop is kind of a defensive piece on that side of the board. The video is now 1 hour and 15 minutes old, and the game's just getting interesting. And that's what happens in a game of chess. A lot of times the games don't start getting interesting until an hour and a half, 2 hours into them. If both of you are taking your time, so you're playing a time control of 40 moves in 2 hours with sudden death in 60. 1 hour you might be weeding your way through the opening and still at move 15. How many times have I seen that happen? I mean, I've even seen people have less than an hour on their clock and they're at move 15. I don't know how they did it. Anyway, he moved. Let's see. Knight's queen b6 as expected. So now my candidate moves are to trade down on c6 and then shift a rook over to the c file, or put the knight on b3 and try to do something on the c5 square. So those are the options here. My gut feeling still is black's equalized. I got plenty of time to figure it out, so I'm taking a little walk and away from the board right now. I'm actually standing outside. You can't see that. Here, you'll hear the door open and close. Here, see? Hear the door? There's a warm day outside. So, like I say, my gut feeling is the game's even, and if played correctly, black can hold a draw. And you know, when you play, you have to accept that with this opening, that black's always got the draw in hand. But then you have a system that you can carefully maneuver, keep your pieces safe, find a weakness in the black position and crack it. You don't win with it's called the King's Indian attack, but you're not attacking the king with it. I rarely attack my opponent's king with it, although I have. It's just a fact. But one of the tests, like I mentioned earlier, is when they play for the pawn structure of c5, d4, e5. Even though I get the c4 square, having my pawn on c3 can be a bit of a nuisance for me using any of my pieces. My knights don't get much scope, and here I think the way I played to trade that off because of the pin on the file stops allows me to get some active squares on the queen side for my pieces, because you want squares for your pieces. What are you going to do if your pieces can't move? Well, you're going to suffocate. And I'll get back to this game in a second. Anyway, so my candidate moves are trade down on c6, and take the c file, or put the knight on b3 and try to find something else to do. That does give me the chance to go to a5 with the knight. If I put it on b3 rather than c5, that shuts down the a file for what it's worth. Because with the open a file and his bishop controlling a2, I do have to be careful his rook doesn't come down to a2 and cause me a little grief. Okay, time to go back in. So go back in, shut the door, latch it. Okay. Oh, knight's already on a5. I was talking about putting it to a5. Well, I can just leave it there. I was talking about putting on b3, then going back to a5. Gosh. Well, I can just leave it there, and if he takes, I get an outside pass pawn, and I've shut off the file. So, with that in mind, is he threatening a tactic with knight takes b4? Bishop takes b4, rook takes a5, queen takes a5. He gives up the exchange for a pawn. That can't be bad for me. What if I put the rook on a1 right now? I don't like taking, but let's talk about it. Knight takes c6, rook takes c6. Okay. Now I play rook takes c6, queen takes c6. Now is his queen threatening any penetration? No, I got c2 covered. He is threatening rook a2 though. I can play rook c1, attack his queen, and he moves his queen. He's threatening rook a2 again, and I can't deal with that. So rook takes c6. Taking on c6 isn't good. Can can he somehow shift his focus to the C file if I give it up? I'm thinking no. See, one drawback with his queen on B6 is he's taking that square away from his knight. Ideally he'd like to get a knight into A4 himself. So my thought is the move is rook A1. And if he takes, may still, I take back the pawn. I have a pass pawn. It's not much, but it's something. It gives him C4. Wait, not C4. It gives him C5. Okay, where'd this rook come from? I don't want to make a mouse slip. Let me drop him on G8 because he can't be there. Okay, rook C1. He takes on A5. I take. Now he's got his knight can get into C5. And from C5 he's pressuring D3. But he's not ready to get in there right away because it's my turn, and I have a tempo on his queen rather. Okay, rook A1, knight takes. Do I want to take with the rook or the pawn? Rook takes, pawn takes. It tempos his queen. His queen goes to say A6, and I can turn around and attack the pawn on B5 with rook B1 and make him defend it with rook B8. Now he's still threatening knight C5, but then I can play bishop B4. Yeah, that's a ticket. Okay, so I'm not sure which way I'm going to take back on A5 yet if he takes there, but rook A1 is the move, at least according to what I see. Now I've spent a great deal of time on this. My time advantage is now more like approaching 5-4 rather than 3-2. But this is okay. It doesn't matter that my ratio has gone down. I still have an extra 14 minutes on the clock, meaning if the game, if suddenly I need more time to sit and plan, or if I overlook something that doesn't quite work out. And an interesting move for him is to play knight C5. He hadn't even considered that. That's one of those little tricky moves. But knight C5 might. No, he can't do it. Knight C5, I just take it because I'm tempoing his queen. But it's one of those little things taking advantage of the fact that B4 pawn is overworked. It's guarding A5 and C5. But he can't play knight C5 in this position, but he might be able to play in another one. So sometimes this happens when I play. I didn't even consider a possibility of him playing knight C5. How can I be a master when I miss stuff like this? You ask yourself that. Well, I'm not perfect. Everything else I'm doing is okay, and as I said, a lot of times moves come up that I didn't expect, and yet my game's still good. I'll find the moves if they need to be found. So right now, we're still going to assume that this game is even, that I have no advantage. At least that can be proven. And chess is like this. You're going to have to work for your points. And you have to work for your points by doing a lot of maneuvering. And that's what I'm trying to do here, is maneuver. So he still has a majority of pieces on the queen side. I didn't even contemplate going over on the king side. I did contemplate it, but I never really saw a formidable way to do it. Certainly could have been a possibility. Okay, so now he plays bishop f8, and let's see. Is he threatening knight takes b4? Knight takes b4, bishop takes b4. No, he's not threatening it. So, where do I want to put my king rook? I want to get him in the game. Do I put him on b1 and overprotect b4? Okay, what can my knight on f3 do? See, I haven't talked about that guy. Knight e1 to c2. to a3, dead end. Move the rook on a1, knight to a1, knight to b3. Now that's an idea. That takes a long time though. Move the bishop, then I can go to d2 and b3 a little quicker. So it might be one of those things where the bishop comes back to e1 like I was talking about. But then again, the moment I play knight d2, I'm no longer guarding b4 with a minor piece. He's got two minor pieces on it. So right now he's not threatening to take it. Now here I can play knight takes c6. And he can't take with the rook on c6 because he drops his rook on a8. So he has to take with the queen. Then I can plant my rook on f1 on c1. We can try this a little different way. Since he's not going to take on a5, I don't think. Maybe this will go somewhere. Rook fc1. It's his move. What's he going to do? Can't play knight takes b4. If he plays bishop takes b4, or maybe he can. Maybe he can play bishop takes b4. I play bishop takes b4. Knight takes a5. Wait, no. Rook fc1. He's giving up a piece to do this. Rook fc1. Bishop takes b4. Bishop takes b4. He's down a piece. But he gets it back. Knight takes a5. Bishop takes a5. Rook takes a5. Yeah, rook fc1. You can play bishop takes b4. We have to take on c6 now. Knight takes c6. Can't take with the rook. He has to take with the queen. Now I can play rook fc1. This queen goes back to b7. Yeah, see, it doesn't look like there's anything here. I can't play knight b3 because b4 hangs. No, I can't play queen a3. I step into a pin. Knight takes a5. Okay. There's so many tactics in chess. Well, I've got a2 covered, so one idea is knight takes c6, rook takes, queen takes c6, and then play rook a5. And replace the knight with the rook. That gets rid of an attacker on b4 and invites him to take on a5. Give me that passed pawn I was trying to get. So let's see. Knight takes c6, rook, queen takes c6, rook a5. He doesn't have time for queen c2 because I play queen takes c2, rook takes c2, and his rook hangs. And my time, yeah, I think that's pretty much based on what I've seen. I just don't have time to maneuver things over to the queen side. So I got to take this, and it does take some pressure off b4. He might get a battery at some point. Let me just explain it here. Bishop, the idea is bishop d6 with proper preparation. Bishop d6, queen d8, queen e7, putting 3 pieces on that. So since I control a5, let's see, knight takes, he takes with the queen, rook a5. He doesn't have time for bishop takes b4. I got too many defenders on it. Okay, so now that's my move. And I play rook a5 next. I'm getting ready to double the rooks on the a file. And keep pressure on b5. Now if I can get my rooks over on that side of the board, then I can start swinging my minor pieces over. Bishop f1, e2, d1, b3. Hey, that takes a long time. 1, 2, 3, 4 moves. Be quicker to move the knight first, and the bishop can go to f3 and e1. Be quicker to do it that way. But do I want the knight? Is the knight in the right place for me? Maybe the trick is swing. Maybe the maneuver is swing the king rook over to the queen side. Drop the bishop back to e1 to clear d2. Then bring the knight to d2. Then the bishop to f3. Maybe that's the way. I don't know. But it saves the tempo in some of these lines. Those are a lot of moves. He has time to make moves too. And, I do have 2 pawn weaknesses here now. He has 1. d3 and b4 are both weak. But b5 is weak objectively. They say the principle of 2 weaknesses. If you have 2 weaknesses, you're losing your game. Well, I have 2 weaknesses. Am I losing? Not necessarily. Just have to, he was more active on the queen side. I'm playing on that side of the board, trying to outplay him over there. It just seemed to make sense over trying a king side attack, but I guess the Super Grandmaster could look at that king side attack and say, oh, you could do this, 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 and this. Well, next time. Have to try it next time. Can't try it this time. I played the Simul yesterday, and 12 hours later, or nearly 12 hours later, the YouTube video was still processing. Can't win. Okay, so time, I have 46 minutes to 34 minutes, so it's close to a 4-3 advantage. I've gone from 3-2 to 5 to 4 to 4 to 3. Okay, he did take with the queen. Now, my move is rook a5, and this allows me to double rooks on the file. And I'll either get the file, or he'll give me a pass pawn. And it's slow for him to chase me out with bishop either e7 or d6 with the idea of coming back on the d8 c5 d8 a5 diagonal. So now rook a5. Now can he play knight c4 here? Or knight c5. No, I pin it. Or just take his rook and then take the knight. Okay, rook a5. Oops. Rook a5, and we'll see what happens. Okay. So, looking forward, after 40 moves, the common overboard time control is 40 moves in like 2 hours, or 40 moves in 90 minutes plus a 30-second increment. But to make 40 moves, most of half your games are over by move 40. Okay, what did he play? He played knight b6. He's trying to get to a4. Well, I was talking about that. But he should try that, and now he has. So I guess I'm going to have to play rook c1 here. But let's look. I was trying to talk about time. I have 45 minutes to make 18 moves, and I also gain 9 minutes in those 18 moves. So I have 54 minutes to make 18 moves, which gives me 3 minutes a move, which is the pace, but then I'm down to a 30-second increment. That should be doable. Okay, I didn't anticipate this move directly, but I'm trying to get him to take on a5. He won't cooperate, so I think I have to play rook c1 here. And he moves his queen to d7. If it goes to b7, he's going to drop the pawn on b5. So rook c1. He can't take on c1. If he plays knight a4, I take his queen. He takes my queen. And I take his bishop. And on e6. Okay, so rook c8, or rook c1. So I have about 3 minutes to move, then I'll be left to get to move 40, and I'll have a 30-second increment to play on. He's in a similar boat. He's okay. Queen now. Which rook to take? If I take on A1, I'm sorry, A8, I'm no longer pressuring B5. If I take on C8, he can take with the rook. If he takes with the queen, he drops his pawn, so he has to take with the rook. Now I get the A file, but he's going to shut that A file down. I was looking at and not mentioning rook c5, but I didn't even see it hangs the rook to bishop takes c5. And looking at it, but not talking about it. Rook takes A8. Rook takes A8. Where can I put my rook where it does any good? Of course, I can double rooks. He plays knight A4. Attacking my queen. Yeah, I'm just not seeing any kind of advantage here. He's playing well. Give him that. Say I've got up to 3 minutes to move if I need it. I have a lesson to give in 4 hours, so I got time to play. Rook takes C8. Rook takes C8. Rook B6. I'm sorry, not rook B6, rook A6. Rook takes C8, rook takes C8, rook A6. Doesn't really pin his knight because his queen's guarding E6. Let's see. I just don't know. I just don't know what to do here. I try to create something out of this, but not much is happening. Rook takes C8. Queen takes C8. It's no good because rook takes B5, rook takes C8, rook takes C8. Now he's on the C file, and I'm not. I think I have to take on c8, then bring my rook back to a1. Okay. I waved that rook out there, but it's just not going anywhere. It'll get the knight into c to a4, but I don't know. Okay, so rook takes. Now he's planning knight a4, which I can't stop. And what's his plan? To put the knight on c3? Rook a1. Rook a3 is a possibility. Rook a3. Knight a4. Queen b1. Knight c3. I just don't know here. Afraid I just have no clue. Got time. Let's see. Let's see. He's going to get that knight to a4. He's going to get that knight to a4. Can't stop that. Can't stop that. So he's not attacking anything. I was talking about remaneuvering my minor pieces. I said that takes time, and he gets moves too. Let's see. So let's see. I like the idea of putting the rook on a6, simply because I can do it. How's that for an answer? It's not a very promising thing. He can always chase it out with queen b7, but then I can put my queen on a1. But look, he cuts communication. They can't cut communication right away with knight a6, knight a4, because e6 will hang. But he can always save that bishop too. So that's definitely a possibility. Let's see. I got the A file, but he's going to shut it down. And I did talk about that possibility earlier, that he could try to do just that, and he has. So what's the time look like? 37. See, it's almost even on time. But like I say, you can use your time and be fine. You can even end up using more time. The whole trick is, can you keep all your time, or keep enough time so you don't lose on time, and the time you do use, even if you fall behind, if you're using it to keep your position in check, everything's fine. So he's always had a majority of pieces on the queen side. I've managed to get my rook over there, but I'm still missing my bishop and knight. So I made a little progress in that regard, but I have moves like let's see. Anyway, queen a3 is an idea. And he's going to play knight c4. He's no longer tempering. I've got to get my pieces over to the queen side. Knight to e2 keeps him out of c2, but I can't get to c2. I don't know. Rook a6. He plays knight a4. Where do I put my queen? b1. Knight c3. Just bring the queen back to b2. Yeah, there's going to be certain positions where that bishop could be loose on e6, even though he has time to move it. Every time he's and save it, I have time to get him piece into place. So I'm just going to play rook a6 and send a draw for his way. And if he takes it, the game's over. And if he doesn't take it, I play and keep working. I do have an active rook for what it's worth, and I think I'm solid enough here. I just haven't been able to see an advantage. I was giving him chances to do something, but he wouldn't go for it. So what can I do? Nothing is the answer. He doesn't want to draw. Okay, fine. Then where do I want to put my queen? B1, I suppose. That keeps his rook out of C2. Okay. He's not attacking my weakness on D3, and he's not attacking on B4. I'm not attacking him on B5, but I'm going to get my pieces shifted over to the queen side here. So let's see. I do have some pressure on E6 and F6 also. Let's see. Maybe what I have to do is play on the king side after all. I have possibilities of creating weakness on E5 with an F4 break. And for what it's worth, I do have plenty of time. I don't have the time advantage I once did. I spent it trying to find something to do, and I couldn't find anything to do. What point? He's so far found the right moves. I think I have enough stuff on the queen side to keep him out of the squares. And if he tries to get his active knight activated, I have control of that A file again. But kind of surprising he declined to draw, but I guess he did. Let's see. So what's he playing? Rook c6. What does that do? Attacks my rook. Right? Attacks my rook. Now where do I want to put the rook? On the 8th rank and pin him? Or trade rooks? Shift my pieces over to the king side. Rook a8. Pins his bishop, but he can break the pin. Rook's kind of hung out to dry there. Nah. Taking the rook does take some pressure off. I got both sets of rooks off. And now I can play for knight c2 by way of knight f1. And I'm keeping him out of squares that he wants to get in with. Yeah, I think the game's still even. I'm offering it just to move on. I'll take his rook, and then I'll drop my knight back to get it into play, and the knight can go to c2 shortly, and here I don't even have to drop the bishop back to d1, e1. I can get the bishop into play with bishop f3 and bishop d1 here shortly. Knight e1. Time is about even, 35 to 32. So approximately a 12 to 11 time advantage. Pretty close, huh? But more importantly, getting to move 40 is the key here. I have to do it in 12 moves. I have just over 3 minutes a move. I'm doing fine on time. So if I need to stop and take my time. But now clearly, there's no point in attacking on the king side. Although I still could with an f4 try to weaken e5. Or if he takes, to get my bishop into play. But the next step is to get my light squared bishop into play with bishop f3 and bishop d1. Yeah, not much is happening in this game. It's pretty even. But it's okay if he doesn't want to draw. He wants to play. That's what we're here for. So 30 minutes, 35 minutes, 12 moves, plus 6 minutes increment. But I don't want to spend all my time. Knight c3, what's he doing? Attacking my queen. Is that any good? Probably. Where do I want to put the queen? Do I put it on... No, I can't put it on b3. I have to go to b2. Right? Can I take that critter? Probably not. Let's see. Bishop takes. He gets an advance pass pawn, which I have blockaded. Oh, he takes with the queen and attacking b4. No, that's no good. I can't take that knight. Okay, queen b2. Make it his move again. It can go to d1. So that's one reason I might be able to play... No, I can play bishop f1. I just or bishop f3. I may not be able to get it to d1, but then I can go to c2 and a3. You can put the knight on a2 and attack b4. Be a second attacker. But I'll have two defenders, bishop and queen, and the knight will come over. I don't, I don't think either side has anything here. I tried to create something over there. I think I had the better game, but he played it well. I just may not have had anything more than an even game. I still think the game is even. Arguably, you could look at this and say, well, black is better, but simply because he's got a little more space with his pieces. But, he's got that pawn chain coming down my throat, but the pawn chain is not going anywhere. Everything's settled. Okay, he's piling on the pawn on b4, so now I have to play knight c2, I think. Right? If I don't play knight c2, I lose the pawn, right? What else? What other move do I have? I could take on c3. But then he's going to get an outside pass pawn if I do that. And those bishops could be deadly. Let's see. Trade the queens. And he gets an outside pass pawn. And that pawn is getting ready to run. No, that's no good. I have to play knight c2 here. Maybe I can take it later at some point. Knight c2. Okay. Still have plenty of time on the clock. I have to make 10 moves in 34 minutes. That's plenty of time. So objectively, I don't want to get to move 40 and have just a 30-second increment to play on. You try to avoid that. But if you need that time, it's there. I'd objectively like to take some time in. Okay, what's he doing? Knight a4? What's he doing there? Knight, planning to put the knight back on b6. Now where does it go? It doesn't really go anywhere. So knight a4. Let's see. Where do I need to put my queen? b1 keeps b4 overprotected. Yeah, I think I got to put it on b1 here. Because it also keeps an eye on c2, the knight on c2. I don't want to leave that hanging. You can't attack d3 directly because you can't get anything to attack it with, and I can always bring the bishop to f1. Although if I'm going to get it to the queen side, I want to go the quicker route, bishop f3, d1. But he's got my knight blockading it. I might be able to get some counterplay on his pawn on b5, maybe, with knight a3. So 10 moves in 30 minutes for him. 10 moves in 33 minutes for me. We're both doing fine. Both doing fine. Since I guess if I'm going to play for win, I'm going to try to shove my kingside pawns. But I don't know if that does anything. Because I can shove mine too. I can play moves like f4. And suddenly black gets weaknesses, and maybe my queen can shift over to the king side really quick, and maybe menace the black king. I just have to wait and see what he does. I see people on my list that are showing up much later, at least not trying to play. They had their chance earlier. I mean, I've posted the time I can play. I can't make you come. If you want to play me, just show up when I announce it. Okay, I'm back outside. He hasn't moved yet. I'll hear a click in my headphones, and I'll go peek at the board. So the maneuvers I was finding just didn't come up with anything, and the counter maneuvers he's finding didn't come up with anything. There's a click. Let's see, what did he play? He put his queen on c6. Okay, so what's that do? Takes the pressure off b4 for a moment. Do I play f4 or bishop f1? Maybe bishop f1 first. Purpose being to safeguard d3 in case I try something with f4. It also takes away a potential check. See, I'm tight. He's got me tied down to guarding that b4 pawn. So my knight wants to go to a3. Excuse me. Wants to go to a3 where it can pester that pawn a little further, but on b5. But I don't have another piece to back up with it. So I'm thinking just bishop f1 here, and go about my business. Although can I put the bishop on e2? I have to watch out for knight c3, and there might be a pressure on that bishop on e2. Depending on the position of my queen, as long as I'm not running into a fork. And right now I'm in that position where oh no, he can't. No, I'm mistaken. The bishop can go to e2. Well, no, then he plays knight c3, and he's attacking the queen and the bishop. So, but the bishop's the weak link in my position is b4. And he can trade the knight for the bishop. But because I have a bishop and knight, he's missing one possible attacker on my pawn on b4. He can get two attackers on it. I can have three defenders, and then the pawn on d3, I won't have a light squared bishop, but he can only attack it with a queen and a light squared bishop, and his light squared bishop isn't positioned to do that at all. I'm thinking bishop f1's probably the move. Okay, let me just stretch my feet a few minutes, or not a few minutes, about 20 more seconds. I don't think I'll go back and play bishop f1, but I'll look at bishop f3 just before I do, because, I have plenty of time. It doesn't matter if I fall behind on the clock. I have plenty of time. It looks like we'll probably hit move 40 with about 20 minutes each at this pace. And then we get a 30-second increment every move. So I think we'll have plenty of time to finish this game and not be in any kind of time pressure. it's so rare that I see time pressure in online games played live. Well, you do in blitz chess, of course, but in long time controls, it's so rare that I see it. But in a real tournament, you see this so many times. You see somebody, they call it the flag hanging. Now today we have digital clocks. Back in those days, we had the analog clocks, and the minute hand would, when it approached the hour, it would raise a little flag up, and when it hit the hour, the flag would drop, and that would mean game over. You lost, unless you'd made your allotted moves. So you'd see people with their, we say your flag is hanging. It's hanging there, ready to drop. Just like a hangman or guy on the gallows, and they're about to pull the trap door, and down he goes. Well, same thing, and it's, you see this in tournament play all the time. Somebody's got to make 8 moves in 3 minutes, and then they find ways to do it, or their flag is actually hanging. And if you're playing the game and able to get a good look at it, you just totally expect that flag to fall, and you try to play a move quick so it does fall, and slam the clock so that maybe that flag does fall because of the extra pressure, and it stays up. I know I had one game where 40 years ago I had somebody in bad time pressure like that, and he was it was funny. He was I would start to make a move, and he would motion his arms over the board like he's ready to respond quickly, and I'd back up and he'd back up, and then I'd start to reach and make a move, and he'd get ready to back up. Then I'd get up and walk away. I had plenty of time on my clock. I was winning the game. I'd get up and walk away, and I'd try to sneak back. But he'd see me. He'd be ready to crouch over the board. And anyway, he made his 40th move in time, and I sat and thought for a second, and I played my 41st move, and his flag immediately fell. So he made it by a fraction of a second, so to speak. But you see some of these games where people are in time trouble, if I keep talking and not going back to my game, that's what's going to happen to me. My flag will end up hanging. So I'm thinking the move is bishop f1. That's what I'm thinking. But I said I would look at what? Bishop f3? But bishop f3 is only if I want to put that bishop on d1. So let's just get it to protect the pawn on or keep that pawn safe on, on d3, and deal with it later. Now we have equal time. So bishop f1, and maybe I can break with f4 at some point. So I've got to make 8 moves. He's got to make 9 moves just to reach the ideal time control of that I'm talking about, of 40 moves, which doesn't exist. I don't know why they can't create these secondary time controls on chess.com or ICC. Okay, if I play bishop e2 now, I might run into a tempo with knight c3 at some point. So do I want to play f4 here and try to weaken e5? If he takes, I take with my bishop. That gives him a new square, e5. It also, I don't even do that. I take on d4. And now what can my queen do? Queen to c1 will steps into a pin, but threatens a bishop h6. Gosh. Well, I got plenty of time here. Let's weigh the pros and cons of it. Again, I don't mind that I was talking earlier how I might end up behind on the clock. Because as long as I have plenty of time, I'm okay. F4, he can't take it. He can pin with, no, he can't pin with bishop h6. He's taken that option away. Had the king gone to f7, if I play f4, he could play bishop h6. So maybe his move's been a little imprecise here, for that in mind. Just something to think about, maneuvers to think about, concepts to contemplate when you're playing a long game. F4 is, I don't have to play f4, but if I don't play f4, I'm basically going to sit here and and play a maneuvering game. Uh, Now, here's the question. Could F4 lose for me? Well, anything could lose for you. You never know. It opens up an F file. What does it weaken? It weakens E3. Can his knight get to E3? Only by way of G4. That's a long route to get over to G4. It suddenly gives my bishop a new square, and if I end up playing something like Queen C2 and Bishop H3 check and trade the bishops, my queen can step to D2 and it's securing B4 just fine. And although he could play something like Bishop B3, but then my queen can, if it's on D2, it can come into G5 and start threatening all kinds of checks. Sometimes that's the way to get counterplay. You know, black's advantage is just a little more space. I have those weaknesses, but they're covered, and he can't put me in any easy Zugzwang with what he's got. So I kind of lost my train of thought there. I like the fact I can play F4 because you can't play Bishop H6. And Knight C3, my queen just goes back to B2. His knight doesn't easily get into play. It just doesn't. Okay, so down to 23 minutes, I better not think too long. Do I want to play F4 here? That's the question. Do I want to play F4? I'm going to play King G2, but then, he might play King F7. He might see what I was trying to do and take it away. So, let's see. F4. I like it, but I don't like it. I don't like it because it weakens E3, but it takes his knight so long to get over there, and I'm still covering it, and I control the diagonal with my bishop, and my knight's covering that square too. It's not like he can just shift focus real quick. That knights can do a lot of maneuvering, but it takes him a long time to do it. So, I don't know. I just don't know. F4. F4 looks so good, but it could lead to some problems. I don't know. Let's see. He clearly can't take. I'll grab on D4 and then grab his bishop off. Oh, wait a minute. He pins me. Knight takes D4. Queen B6. I have to protect the knight. Yeah. But then, I've isolated the pawn. It can just sit. Sit and deal with it later. Well, if I don't move now, I just kind of like moving blindly here. And if I move, just waste to move King G2, he's going to play King F7 and stop F4 with Bishop H6. So, in light of the fact that I'm running out of time, I give him a chance to create a weakness on E5. So, or try to create a weakness of his on C5. And try to transfer my queen to C1 and transfer my queen to C1 and penetrate on the dark squares, or at least liquidate the dark square bishop, take some of the heat off B4, and threaten to penetrate with the queen. I think I covered all that earlier. So, there you have it. So 49 minutes between the two of us, plus another 7 moves each, 13 minutes. 1 hour we'll hit 40. We could not hit move 40 for an hour. And the video is now 2 hours and 16 minutes long. So now we wait for his move. He played bishop or d6. He guarded that. Now he's trying to occupy that square with his bishop. F takes. He takes with the bishop. Does that help him any? Takes him off of. Takes him off of the pawn on b4, which I will have triple protected, and does give me a chance to maybe try to generate some dark square counterplay, or at least trade off the dark squared bishops. But I got to be careful about transferring over to the file, because he gets moves like bishop b3 in. Let's see. I don't know. It's like I should take it on e5. That was what I played it for. Can I push by with f5? Idea sack a pawn to activate my light squared bishop. That's an idea. f5. He takes. I get the bishop to g2. Then what happens? Probably not fair. I don't have open lines. Of course, what if I just play a waiting game? Playing a waiting game is reasonable. He can't take on f4 because what was the reason I was worrying about that pin? What if I get my king off the file or the diagonal? Plant my king up on g2. He might play queen c8. So you can't take on f4 because now I can grab that knight or pawn on d4. You can try bishop queen c8, but that doesn't really bother me. I can take the pawn, and he takes, and I got to think that I'm okay here. Well, kind of running out of time. I'm going to give him a chance to take on f4. I'm going to get my king off that diagonal. Of course, he could play f5. If I play king g2, he could play f5. That's a possibility. King g2. What happens if he plays f5? What do I do there? That's a good move for him. King g2 is not good. He plays f5. No, play king g2 later, but not now, because I can't give him the possibility of f5. Okay, I'll take. And then consider king g2. I was going to play king g2, but you give these things a little bit more thought. And, well, I'll play king g2 next, maybe. Nice little waiting move. Okay, so he's making up his mind which way to take with the bishop or the pawn. I have 18 minutes, he has 26. So I feel like I got my kingside play I was talking about much earlier. I get the g5 square for my bishop for what it's worth. Although it's not easy to get the queen to attack f6 if that were the case. So I have to step into a pin in some cases. Okay, took with the pawn. Now king g2, just a waiting move. Yeah, just play king g2 here. Waiting move. Okay. Now, let's see. What's he going to do here? He's got to come up with something. It's his turn. The rules of chess say you both have to move. I'm playing a waiting game here. Knight b6 to d7 to f6 to g4. That's a lot of moves. That's a lot of moves. Queen e d7. Okay. What's he threatening? Bishop h3 check. Do I care if he does that? It's taking the heat off of h or b4. I mean, he's also stepped out of the pin. I can threaten a check. Let's see. We can both be checking each other. Queen c1. He can check or repin me. I can start giving checks. I think I have to take advantage of it. Queen c1. If he wants to trade bishop h3, my queen will swing over. Just try to keep this thing level here. Now his knight doesn't tempo my queen with knight c3. He can repin me. He can give the check. Bishop checks. I guess the king goes back to g1. He takes. I take with my queen. My queen is suddenly ready to pounce on the king side. He attacks my knight. Queen c7. My knight can move to e1. And I've got b4 covered still. Getting ready to bring the knight over the queen side, or king side. What's going to happen here is we're probably going to both be down to the increment in a little bit. But I really think this game is even. You know, I don't mind trading off the light squared bishops here. His center pawns are on dark squares. I actually don't mind trading off either set of bishops. So because I've got bishops defending pawns, he doesn't. My bishop on f1 is guarding one on d3. My one on d2 is guarding one on b4. So I don't mind trading off one of them. And for what it's worth, I am threatening a bishop check and possible play myself at the right time. Get the bishop to e2. Back to d1, swing the queen to d2, over to f2, and try to attack him. So "17 minutes for 4 moves. That gives me a little over 4 minutes a move. I want to hit move 40 with at least 10 minutes on my clock. Okay, that helps. He checked, and I pretty much have to come to g1. Now if he takes the bishop, which way to take? I want to take with the king or the queen? Or I want to stop and check him first before I take with the queen. Yeah, check him first. And then I've got a certain amount of pressure. So if he takes on f1, I check him first. Then take back with the queen. And for what it's worth, I have his bishop tied down to guarding f8. And my queen's ready to penetrate to f6. So where am I? King's on... He can't pin my knight now. That was one of the things I was kind of worried about, was a queen c7. He doesn't have time to do it. Because I can, okay, now do I want to check on h6 or take on f1? I think I want to check on h6 and just get ready to try to counterplay here. Now as king moves, I pre-move queen f1. Time's about even. He has 20 minutes. I have 18. And every time there's a full move played, 1 minute gets added to the game. So wonder how long this game will go. Theoretically, it can go another 40 minutes before we get into 1 minute per move. But then, we could both even end up with more time on our clocks than we have now if we keep trading off. Anyway, so after his puts his king on g8, I assume I'll be playing queen takes f1 and trying to penetrate to f6. So my idea of f4 seems to be working out. I went to f7. Didn't expect that. I expected him to go to g8. He's trying to get his king active. Now he's in check again. So where's he going to put his king? e6? Might be able to get at it there. King e6. I got queen h3 check and get the queens off. King g8. Has he just given me a tempo? I mean, this could help. King g8. I'm going to play queen f6. I think. That's where I want to go. Queen f6. Just keeps an eye on g7. King e8. He's trying to run his king for the queen side. Okay, does he have any entry points over there? King can't get to d5, c5, or a5. No, his king doesn't have entry points. But I mean, a place for his king to break into my pawn structure. I still want to play queen f6. That threatens queen h8 check. Ties his queen down a little bit. Queen f6. Threatens queen h8 check and winning a pawn. Let's see. Queen f6. What's he going to do? Queen e7. I play queen h8. Oh, his king gets out to d7. And, well, I got to play it. I got to get my queen active. It wasn't doing me much earlier. So queen f6. Maybe suddenly I have winning chances here. If he doesn't play it carefully, bishop e7 would be a horrible blunder. I play queen h8 check. So, how can I get my knight in the game? Oh, if I move my knight, I'll lose the b4 pawn, but that might not be important. Suddenly, I got my kingside attack. After all these moves, I ended up with it. I never expected that. Now, my majority of kingside pieces is finally bearing fruit. I have, if you divide the board in half, all his pieces are on the queen side, 2 of mine are on the king side. I'm threatening a queen h8 check, winning a h7 pawn, so he's got to deal with that. Queen f7, I'm going to steal his bishop on d6. Queen e7. Queen e7 kind of spoils things. It's probably his best move. I mean, spoils things for me trying to get a win. Okay, queen e7. Okay, well, for what it's worth, his queen isn't doing a whole lot for him. So, well, no, it is. It's attacking b4. So if I check him and he goes up to d7, yeah. If we want to trade his queen, might be the simplest way to equality here. Let's see. Queen takes. Takes with the king, I suppose. Now, how can he attack b4 a second time? He can't. So I just start bringing my king up. He plays knight, king f2, he plays knight c3 and keeps me out. That pretty much means take it for a draw. I don't know if there's any winning chances in here for me, just based on the fact that his I made him weakness on e5. He's got no entry points for his king on the queen side. This should just, I mean, I'm happy with the draw. I don't see how to play this for a win. I'll just take it. Bring my king over. I decided to take with the king. Took with the bishop. What's he trying to do? Play bishop g5? I mean, bishop g5, pawn g5. Now he's unprotecting e5 for what it's worth. Gonna play bishop g7. Just keep his bishop honest. Could do that, I suppose. I don't see how he makes any progress. Duh. Let's see. I have to watch out for knight b2. So what if I just play king f2 here? Does he get away with g5? King f2, g5. Well, that puts a pawn on a dark square, so that could be weak. don't know. He's bringing the bishop back to d2, and he can't really do anything. Just a little bit concerned about getting that bishop trap. Let's see, bishop d2. If he plays knight b2, I play knight f1. And the game's, yeah. I mean, I can't really play this for win unless he blunders. Going into, allowing g5 just starts making complications, because I might have to throw a pawn away to get the bishop out h4, allowing him to take twice. So I'll just play bishop d2. And I already offered a draw, he didn't take it, so I guess maybe he'll offer one back soon. I've got the pawn on b4 covered twice. If he's not careful, I'll cover the pawn on e2. I mean, the pawn on d3 with my king over to e2. So we both have two weaknesses. I have him on d3 and b4. He has him on b5 and e5. Only difference is he's attacking my weaknesses, and I'm not attacking his. But you know, he can only attack b4 twice, and I've got it covered. And he has no entry points for his king, so the game's a draw. There's no doubt in my mind the game's a draw. It's the only question is one of us blunder it. And, you know, here I had a chance to blunder it. Like, try to bring my king up earlier and get the bishop kind of stuck with g5. You know, that's just, ugh. It's just too complicated. You have to think way far ahead and run into a myriad of possibilities. Knight b2. Okay, now I play knight e1. And now you can put your knight on d1. I don't suppose that bothers me. Knight d1. What's he trying? Then you're going to e3. I just attack your knight your pawn on e5. So I'm getting ready for knight f3, pressuring. I mean, my minor pieces can attack yours if I can get my king to e2. But I don't, still, even if mine become the aggressor, I don't think is enough to win here. We both have two weaknesses, but it's just not enough. So I have 14 minutes. He has 16 minutes. We've passed move 40. If we go to move 60, that's another 8 minutes for me, 8 minutes for him, 24 minutes for 17 moves. I have just over a minute a move here. I can take over a minute move for a while before I have to start moving every 30 seconds. Okay. The problem is there's no entry squares for the black king on the queen side. Technically there is on the king side for both of us, because g5 and g4 are not covered by pawns, but minor pieces are keeping kings out. But on the king side or queen side, there's no entry points for the kings, and it's going to take a while to get that knight to where it attacks b4. It can attack it from c2, but he can't get there. It can attack it from d3 naturally, but he can't get there. So that's got to go to a4, b6, c8, a7, c6. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 moves. Okay, king d7. There's no entry points over there. That doesn't help him. So I bring my king closer, I believe. And if I do that, then I'm getting ready to play knight f3. So my minor piece becomes an aggressor. For what it's worth. Not sure if it's worth much. Not sure if it's worth much at all. Because he can always defend it too. You know, just like I'm defending my pawns. So king f1, get the king closer. Come on, mousey. There you go. King f1. The idea of king will come to e2, and the knight is free to go time down to guarding e5. So now we both have 14 minutes left. King c6. He offered a draw. Do I accept or decline? Well, let's see. I don't know. Probably just accept and get it over with. Yeah, makes sense. Okay. Clearly I have to play my knight. If I want to play for win, I have to play king e2, which frees my knight. But if I get the knight to f6 or f3, my bishop is still tied down to guarding this pawn on b4. And this bishop guards it. And you can always even bring the king back to e6 if I try to go through some crazy maneuver, bishop h6 and bishop g7, and maybe I can win the pawn on e5, but he gets this pawn and on b4, and this becomes an outside pass pawn and a threat. So I'm afraid that's just a little too complicated for a casual simultaneous. If I had more time in a longer game, I might consider, but I think the writing is on the wall. The game's a draw, and I will accept it. Thank you so much. And I didn't go over these other two games, or this other game. I only played 3 games. I kept forgetting about this. Unfortunately, see, I made some silly moves here, or quick moves. Okay, here I'm making exchanges that improve the position of my pieces, and here I get the queen out. He takes that, develops my rook. But here, queen g6 is just a mistake. She should play rook f6, and my queen has to go back, and I've given him 2 free moves. But I guess he's trying to simplify with queen g5. And if I take, my rook has a little trouble getting out, but I'll get it out. And it still had trouble getting out. But he blundered here. He just needs to move his queen back, say to f6, offer a queen trade. Eventually I have to weaken my pawn structure to get my king out, or to get my rook out, but now I just have these combinations, winning a rook rather, and offer queen trade, which you can't accept. Now I just set up mate threats, and there it is, and game over. So let's see, let's close this one out. Wrong one. Okay, now that leaves this game. What's he saying? Masi Satrung. I don't know somebody else said this. Okay, he's saying make something back there. I don't know. Maybe you did. I don't know. Okay. Let's take a look at this one. I think I got the better position out of the opening, but was trying to lure him into making a mistake, and he didn't. Okay. E4, D5. Now I take here. See, the theme here is that even though he's got a space advantage, I've got play on this C file with pins, and development is pretty even. It's White's move. White is a tempo ahead. You see, White's got this bishop on G5 developed. Black doesn't. The entire king side is the king side is entirely symmetric except for this bishop on G5. The queen side, the difference in the position is my knight's on D2, his is on C6, and my bishop's on G5, his is on C8, and it's my move. So White's a little better here. I develop a piece, and I occupy this square, and now my idea was to try to get B4 in, and I had to be certain my bishop never got trapped. I got B4 in, but maybe I should have tried for B5 at some point. B5. Maybe that move gives me an advantage. Did I even consider that when we played there? Gives him C5. He has to move his knight. Yeah, B5 is just probably the right move. I ended up playing Queen B2 here. I was so intent on B5. B5 gives White a nice game. B5. Now I've wiped out the game continuation, so I'll have to go on remembering. Let's see. B5, what's he do? Oh, wait. Or is he going to take down here? Okay. I was looking at this, and I said I couldn't play B6 because I end up with a pin. But I can actually now play this move, Queen B3. This seems to give, yeah, definitely, this is good for me. The threat is B6, although maybe not. Let's see, B6, knight takes B6, queen takes B6, bishop takes C4, queen takes, rook takes, no, I come out a piece ahead there. Yeah, this is clear advantage for White. Last night, still uploading. Queen B3 was Queen B2 bad. B5 seems to keep White's edge. Well played. Okay. So this seems to give White an advantage, and my bishop ended up getting tied down. I can't go over the rest of the game because this isn't the analysis board, unless maybe it'll bring it up. No. Okay. Anyway, queen seems to do it. Then I'm not tied down to guarding B4, and he doesn't get the knight to A4, something I was talking about. But, oh wait, let me scroll up, and you can't see the chat window we're talking here. That's why the video is going blank. It says, do you want to review alone or with your opponent? Let's see. Anyway, let's see. Maybe I can bring review with opponent, review alone. If it doesn't bring it in the recording window, yeah, here we go. No, it's wiped it out and played the new line. Chess.com, you got to fix this, okay? I'm hitting review alone. It's bringing back the variation that should have come. We've lost the game, the real game. All I can do is try to remember it. I don't know if I can do that. I played, let's see, after rook fc8, I played queen b2. I was trying to do things as discussed in the video, and b5 came in. I got knight a5 in, and I was liking the game, but I just couldn't go anywhere with it. And I don't remember what he did. Yeah, I just don't remember. I'm sorry I can't really cover the whole game here, but those who are watching this far, you did see the whole game unfold. And the video is now almost the 3-hour mark, so I'm going to thank everyone for watching. Come play in my simuls. Get some good practice. And thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.